Welcome to the Real Estate Rundown. You are joined by Jason, Kayla, Keith, and Elliot. We have an interesting topic with a lot of the NAR lawsuits that are falling out. Recently read a story in Reddit where a buyer had approached a listing unrepresented to work with the listing agent, made an offer. The listing agent had let them know that they were unable to represent them and that they should go back to a different agent. Based on an offer that didn't work. Well, they reapproached the agent, then makes the offer that they were working with on their behalf, gets a counter back for highest and best. They then raise their offer, get a counter back for essentially another highest and best. They raise their offer, and the long and the short of it is they're not really getting any direct response back with certain numbers or certain terms that they need to be. And the complexity of it is are they ultimately negotiating against themselves?
So do you think the listing agent was already representing somebody?
Probably somebody that had a better offer,
and
better
was
commission.
Like, I can't represent you. I'm already representing
Exactly.
somebody on this that wants the house.
That was like the underlying tone of the article that I got.
Yeah,
and the buyer said, "Are we being played?"
Yes.
They felt like they were being played.
Yeah, played. I mean, when you're the listing agent, you pretty much own the listings. You can you own the information coming towards you, and if you're working with somebody, your fiduciary is to tell them what they need to do to get the house. And that's my thought. I mean, how else do you deal with that?
Well, I mean, when you're that is like that's not limited. Excuse me, that's a dual agency situation, right? So if they have the buyer, maybe it's a limited dual agency that they have working with another agent that has a buyer that they're representing that they know inside their brokerage, for example. Mm-hmm. But there's just so many variations in this. I think that
but there's multiple offers.
Yes.
But then you represent represent the seller, and you also represent the buyer that wants it, and there's multiple offers. I mean, that buyer is
how do you effectively represent the seller?
Yeah, that buyer is in the driver's seat
that's my point, Kayla.
They're the only ones really knowing what the highest and best offer is. So if they and if you have to keep going back to highest and best. All right, this was the highest and best. You want to go higher?
Yeah.
And it sounds like that's exactly what they were doing. And the buyer was thinking that they were being scammed because the property had been on the market for a few months. And I think that what buyers don't realize, and a phenomena that happens in real estate, is offers don't come in ones, they come in threes. And you can have a house that's been sitting on the market for months, and then all of a sudden you hit that right price point or the right buyer pool or the right economic situation happens, and then bam, you don't have one offer, you get three offers.
And sure,
and then they always think you're lying.
Yeah, right.
It is the wildest thing.
They think you're lying to them.
It is the wildest thing when that happens, right? And I mean, we've all seen it happen so many times. Listing that's sitting around collecting dust, you trying to shake the tree, fall out, whatever you can, and then all of a sudden, I've had it happen where there's no price adjustments, no massive current event, nothing, and all of a sudden, bam, bam, bam.
It's
multiple
the energy,
offers.
the energy out there. The home's just going bring me some offers.
Yes.
And they all come at the same time.
They either saged it or they planted that St. Michael.
St. Joseph.
St. Joseph, yes. Thank you.
That you bury him upside down.
Mm-hmm.
I've actually never done that.
So the listing agent said, "No, I can't represent you," to that buyer.
Correct.
At first, and then he didn't give him. Then there's no reason though.
Specifically, the post said that find a new agent because she is working with another buyer.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, so she was working with a buyer
So
that
she
won that
disclosed
house.
that. But the buyer felt like they were being scammed, and maybe they really weren't. And
Well, they weren't, because she basically said that I'm already working with somebody that wants the house, and you can't work with multiple people that want the same house. I mean, that's just...
Well, and their agent could have asked for proof of hey, at least prove that you have another buyer, right? That they're not just driving up the price, highest and best. I mean, a seller can always counter back highest best.
But you don't have to show them proof of a buyer. If that buyer may not want them to say who they are. So how do you prove it?
And words matter, right? Maybe the agent didn't want to be in dual agency. Maybe the agent was working with another buyer that was offering on a completely different property and spun it like, I'm already working with another buyer. Please go find another agent.
Yeah,
the listing agent doesn't need to disclose that they're not interested in doing dual rep.
I never thought of that until you said that, like the spin-off.
Words matter.
That's crafty.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I've been talking to way too many attorneys.
That's funny.
Yeah, interesting story indeed. And I know, Keith, you probably have a lot to say on this topic because you're you're the liaison for the buyers in all of the platform and handling so many offers. What are your thoughts?
I mean, at the end of the day, whether you're representing a buyer, your goal is to get them the best price possible for the property, and it's the exact same words matter for the seller. Your goal is to get them the best price possible. So, to me, for lack of a better word, it is a game. It's just the nature of the beast. And as a licensed agent, whoever you're representing, that's the goal. So whatever, for me, whatever that takes, buyers or sellers can, think certain things or whatever they want. They have their own decision making, right? It was like, well, I'm not willing to go past a certain point. If you win it, great. If not, then the house is going to get gobbled up by someone else, and they're going to know if they were being lied to or not, right? Why would you counter somebody highest and best, not take their offer, and the house continues to sit? That doesn't happen very often. Then at that point, maybe somebody could feel a particular way, but if you're continuing to go back to buyers highest and best, like, oh, this is crap, this is BS, and then the house eventually goes pending, they're going to know they weren't lied to in the first place. So, but anyway, that's really my thoughts. Is sometimes it's not fun. It's you're put in a unique scenario, especially when the house is sitting for a long period of time, and you just, at that point, you have to play it. It's like, oh my gosh, we have an opportunity here. We have to maximize on it. Absolutely.
I feel bad for buyers in those situations, though. It's never any fun. So turning to lawsuits, because there was a new one filed. It was filed against NAR and claiming monopoly and claiming that it's unfair to require a realtor to join NAR in order to have MLS access. And we were at the BAM Mania, which was an amazing real estate conference last week. And one of the speakers was Rob Hahn, who I just dearly respect and think he is just one of the best thought leaders in real estate, especially when it comes to legal issues. And he was talking about clear cooperation and how there's a push to disband clear cooperation. And I look at, and also Rob Hahn at BAM Mania said that he sees a future where we go from whatever the 500 plus MLSs across the US down to maybe 3 MLSs. And it was shocking. It's interesting to kind of hear. He also sees a future where maybe NAR doesn't exist any longer, which I don't think is very far-fetched. I mean, there was an audience of about 500 realtors, and Byron Lazine asked the audience who here has thought about leaving NAR, and about 60% of hands raised, and there was probably another 15% of people that didn't raise their hands but have also thought about leaving NAR. And I think that when it comes down to it, one of the reasons that we don't leave NAR is MLS and standardized forms. And one thing that Rob Hahn said is that we could all, as realtors, be potentially accused of collusion by using state forms. And so his advice to brokerages is don't use state forms, which I thought was really interesting because we were always told to use them because it's risk reduction. But in any event, so a future where now NAR is being attacked, they're being sued. I believe this is the second lawsuit against them. And we're looking at a future where potentially MLSs, which I believe are the true power holders in this equation because of the data. We give them our data and then it becomes their data and then they resell that data. And it's, it's an interesting dynamic in real estate. So let's chop that up.
Yeah. I mean, to me, you hit the nail on the head, right? Like where they collect data from us, you go out, meet with sellers, get information on that particular property, submit it into the data hub, and then of course that recirculates, right?
And not just get data, but we're paying hundreds, sometimes thousands of dollars to take media of a property. True. Right? And then I look at, look at like a listing where you go and you get a Matterport, maybe you do the Zillow 3D scan, maybe you do aerials, photos, maybe you do that floor plan, maybe you do professional photos, maybe you include a video walkthrough. You're looking at a couple $1,000s worth of data that you had created, and then you give it to the MLS, and then it's theirs.
Yeah, well, and I mean, their narrative is, hey, post it on our platform because it syndicates with Zillow, Realtor.com, et cetera, and, you know, whatever buyer portal searches going on out there within your local MLS to attract buyers, right? I mean, I get the skinny, but there's no question. The part that I think that stings the most is we as a collective, as you just stated, spend the money getting this high-end data in the form of pictures a lot of times, but then generalized information of, hey, you've changed this is different, uploading it into this platform, then they resell it back to us. That to me is just the...
Yeah, we should have like ownership in that.
Yes.
You know, it should be some sort of blockchain where you upload it and you get some coins. You get some MLS coins
fun.
or something.
Yeah,
you know,
MLS
like,
coins, I love it.
like as you're inputting data. Yeah.
Yeah, like
the more data upload you get, the more coins you get. I like it.
Zutoshi.
Yeah, because who's
Like that.
Yeah, who's benefiting from all the data that we're putting in? It's
Absolutely,
the
MLSs.
Right? They're how much money is an MLS making? They're making a ton of money. And same with NAR. So, but you have to have some sort of hub or agreement between all realtors across the country or areas, and how do you do that? There's got to be someone.
There has to be rules of engagement. I understand
There's an MLS Satoshi out there that just drops something, a new MLS, and then just walks away from it, and you know, agents are able to access it without a central authority.
Decentralized MLS.
Yeah,
they're gonna mine for data.
Yeah.
See,
Yeah, that's
the
interesting.
unique thing about this too, though, is sometimes yes, it all started with the MLS, and you have to put this particular listing in this particular MLS in order to target this particular area. But because of that, I think a part of the problem now is also sometimes agents, they're damn gatekeepers, depending on where they're located. And it's more of outside of a major metropolitan area. Woo, some of those people, they're hardcore. They're like, no, you cannot have access to my MLS, or you can't, if you show my MLS, I won't pay you. You know, obviously I know the rules are a little bit different now, but this has been going on for a long period of time. So I don't think it's just the MLSs at this point. It's also agents too, that causes some of these gatekeeping issues, so to speak.
Well, they've been taught that way, though.
I get that, but that's what it's turned into, unfortunately.
Well, and that used to be the benefit of the MLS was the compensation share, and now that's gone. I kid you not, though. I heard a story the other day of, well, I'll just share it. So my sister's a realtor, and she shared that someone reached out to her because it's been like 2 months since commission was taken off MLS, over 2 months. And someone reached out to her and was like, oh my gosh, did you know that they took commission off the MLS? And it was another realtor.
Never heard of it.
What? It's like, where have you been?
That's someone who's doing no deals.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
As much as I wish that shocked me,
there's probably 50% of agents that don't know already.
There's probably still a good chunk that don't know. Yeah. But hey, guys, commission is no longer on MLS. So if you're listening and you don't know that, talk to your broker.
Where's the commission? I'm looking through this.
Wait, what? Is this a typo? Did they change something? The layout? Am I supposed to call in to find out?
So some people are very late to the party, and that's when you show up and like all the food's gone and there's just a couple old pieces of broccoli on the veggie plate and you're like, what happened? So, you know, yeah, Rob Hahn had some really interesting takes on this. So let's talk about clear cooperation for a moment, because clearly, no pun intended, the large brokerages want to see clear cooperation disbanded. And if you're an indie broker or a smaller broker, you may look at that as being unfair and anti-competitive. So what are our thoughts?
I think that opens up some more lawsuits if like a large brokerage from an EXP puts a seller's house on the market, and another broker from within the XP or another large brokerage, picks it up, scoops it up, and then the agent finds out, or the seller finds out that it wasn't offered to everybody. like, hey, well, I'm an agent, and I had a buyer that would have paid twice as much for that house, and I didn't even see it. And that seller goes, well, what do you mean you didn't see it? Well, because it was never offered to me.
So you see the problem being if Clear Cooperation is disbanded and a company just advertises it to the agents in their own company and sells it, then sellers coming back down the line saying, hey, you didn't maximize my home to the full market. I could have made more money had you and
that's the whole. You didn't give it to the whole market.
Yeah,
you only gave it to a certain broker amount. Yeah, and I would think there would be some pretty big disclosures that an EXP or a Remax or any other big brokerage that's gonna give it to their serve it up to their agents first and give them the opportunity to buy it. They would have to disclose that they're not gonna give it to the whole market.
I honestly,
and why would any seller agree to that?
Yeah, I get a limited
maybe,
views.
Maybe they agree to it because the spin is I'll charge you less of a commission during that introductory phase where it's only being exposed to my brokerage.
Yeah,
maybe they offset it.
I still see
that's still a lawsuit.
A lawsuit because if some seller goes, you know what? Did I get the most amount?
Yeah,
of
that
money
1%
here?
Brink
Did they just do
gave
me wrong?
me. My neighbor down the house sold 4 months later for $100,000
yeah,
more.
exactly. That's where I would see it.
Exactly.
Like, oh my gosh, why didn't I get that? And then you're like, and then you find out like, oh well, I signed this thing to get a 1% discounted commission to only give it to these people, and I got screwed.
Were they really out in his office?
Was that really a fiduciary to me? Was to only give it to those people? I mean, I don't know.
I totally could see it.
But I think it's screwed up for small businesses too, for small brokerages. I mean, we own a small brokerage, and yeah, it would suck because if all these, we had buyers agents that were out there looking for houses, and they were just being sold within larger, big, giant brokerages. It cuts out the smaller brokerages.
Inventory matters, right? That's part of one of the value propositions that you have as a buyer representative, or one of the different things that you can potentially bring is, like you even said, an quote unquote off market property, right? That's almost like a version of it's a pocket listing, right? Like even if it's an EXP with 90,000 agents, it's still a form of a pocket listing.
Yep.
Yeah, but that's not going to get how many agents are in that marketplace.
Oh,
so
agreed. Agreed.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I know what you're saying, but I think that's the biggest thing is we all know there would be pretty limited exposure. I mean, because even out of 90,000 agents, how many of those agents perform? How many of those agents are even going to take a peep that particular listing was ever even advertised to them? 10%?
Well, and another thing to think about, with the Clear Cooperation you're talking about, and a whole dismantling that could happen. I mean, because a lot of times, especially where we're very lucky here in the Phoenix Metro, of how far and wide the MLS is, right? There's a lot of other places that they have to subscribe to 2, 3, 4 MLSs, in that local place. And I could see there's some kind of issue coming where it busts up this to try to get the activity. Then is it now you're going to have to really pour into Realtor.com? You're going to have to pay Zillow differently. Are they going to start charging you to put your listing on there so it gets the exposure?
Of course. Why do these big companies want Clear Cooperation? Because they want your data.
We just said. What we just said.
Because if there's no clear cooperation, and they're just saying, here's a listing I have, here's some media to my brokerage, it never gets uploaded into the MLS. Then they don't have inventory to put out there and then resell it to us.
Another interesting thing that Rob Hahn said on stage at BAM Mania was that this was the youngest crowd of real estate professionals he has ever spoken in front of. And because he asked everyone to raise their hand based on generation, and by looking at the hand raising, there were hardly any boomers. There were definitely more Gen X, and definitely the most millennials and a few Gen Z.
Yeah, there was 2 boomers.
Yeah, exactly.
Room of 500
right.
agents.
One lady had this little dog and kept walking out and back in and out and back in. And we're like, dude, lady, make up your mind. She would walk her dog out and then come back and walk her dog back in.
It was a little Chihuahua or something?
No, it was a little, maybe a Maltese.
Oh. Was she one of the boomers that had the business card with the little dog?
I met the little dog. The dog's name was, I don't know if Cody.
You did meet the dog?
Yes.
Oh, that is too funny. So anyhow, it was a very young crowd. And one of the things that he said is in the past he had shared with realtors, like, get involved in your local association, get involved in your boards, get involved. And he said that that's actually like not the right advice right now. He doesn't think so. He thinks that getting involved in those things is not the best use of our time as realtors. And if we want to make change, we're going to have to go about it differently, which I also found to be really interesting. And I think that what's at stake here is the future of real estate is being decided for us right now. And are we going to let the leadership of a few powerful companies decide what the future of real estate looks like for all of us and what the rules of engagement are for all of us when the majority of us are not affiliated with these large brands? The majority of us are independents in real estate. And I think that's one of the things that really drives real estate. Like if you tallied up all of the agent count from all of the top brokerages, it probably wouldn't even be half of all realtors. It probably wouldn't even be a third of all realtors. And so if you really look at who's representing us and who's basically going to call the shots for the future, do we want it to be in the hands of the few, or do we want it to be the voice of many? And so how do we organize? How do we kind of have a say in what's happening? And I'm kind of at a loss still digesting.
Start a new NAR or something like.
Well, well, there was that they
guy.
Already did.
Well, yeah,
they did. Who?
Yeah.
The guy who was on the TV show. Yeah,
Mauricio Umansky started.
But they have to create a national MLS somehow, right?
That's the key.
And to where it's fair, and it's not like the person that's created it gets like 70% of the value, like they have to be able, it's got to be some sort of like a Bitcoin,
a decentralized
where there's
MLS.
no one that's in charge. It's just, hey, we all cooperate
the marketplace
to put in the data and we get the value out of it. And if Zillow wants to be a part of it or Realtor.com wants to be a part of it, they have to pay like us. And then it becomes like then it almost becomes free for agents to become or to have to put in that data, or we get paid. Like, you imagine if we get a listing and we put our data in and we get paid.
That would be wonderful.
Because it's our freaking data.
How many more agents would be ambitious? How many more agents would ambitiously be getting?
It should be,
right?
because how much money are they getting paid?
I know how we can incorporate all that. We've already had those conversations. We've already started having those conversations.
We get excited about all of this.
Oh, we stewing on something after this.
We are. We will be. All right, let's shift a little bit and talk about entrepreneurship struggles. I want to talk about struggles for a moment. And the reason why I want to go there is because home sales are at a low. I mean, you have to go back to the 90s to find home sales this low. Interest rates, even with the 50 basis point Fed cut, mortgage interest rates have rose. They're almost back to 7%. We probably will not see any steep discount in rates. So the housing market could be what keeps inflation higher. And
I know that, which is typically the opposite.
So economically, things are a little bit rough. If you're selling houses right now, pat yourself on the back.
Yes. Because
it's a tough market. There's a lot of competition. We have these rule changes. Realtors are shifting to, hey, I used to generate a ton of buyer IDX leads. Now I need to generate expensive seller leads. And so it's really tough. And I want to talk about the struggle, because I don't think we talk about that enough. And, if selling real estate was so easy, why do 87% of realtors fail? For one. Because they do. It is not, it may be easy to get licensed. It is not easy to actually be successful in real estate.
That sounds low.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I mean, anyway.
Well, because 87% of people don't take it seriously.
So I want to talk about the struggle, because we've all certainly been through our fair share of struggle and tough times, and having that resiliency, which I believe is the number one thing 100%. To having success, is being resilient. People think it's, you need a high IQ, you need to be smart, you need to you need to be connected. No, it's not. It's being resilient, because you're going to get your ass kicked again and again and again. And how do you pick yourself back up and keep going? So I want to hear some takeaways on that.
This is probably going to sound a little cliche, but for me, it's the one thing that has stuck with me over anything I've ever read in my life in regards to the quote unquote personal self-development world. It's literally hit me harder than anything. Is I think Darren Hardy literally says it almost better than anybody, even though there's a tremendous amount of influencers out there that say it really well, is success is mundane. It's not sexy. And it a lot of times it downright sucks. And most people, they don't look at it that way. The pendulum always swings, both ways. And when it's swinging the way that we don't want it to swing, which is like, oh, I don't feel like I'm being successful right now. This sucks. That's where he says it's hard effing work. And the way to be successful is, like you just said, you don't have to have an IQ. He says, I meet people all the time that are smarter than me, but I will outwork your ass. And that's why I'll be more successful than you. And it just, I'm a worker, I'm a grinder. And so that just resonates with me so hard. So in the times where I'm just like, man, why aren't we putting more deals together? Why aren't more subscribers or whatever it is that, that you have going through your brain? I was like, okay, what am I doing? What can I do better? And how can I work harder? And eventually the pendulum will swing the other way, and it's just a fact. So that's the way I look at it.
Yeah, that's good.
That's so good.
It's great. It's not sexy. Definitely not sexy. For me, it's a little statement that's every no is closer to a yes.
Yeah.
And a lot of times you get a lot of no's, and but no's are good. So that in sales you gotta have a lot of no's before you get the yeses. And so a lot of people think, oh man, I'm just not successful because I did this, I did that, did this, and all these people said no. Well, you're closer. Keep going. Get more no's. So.
Ricky Caruth said at BAM Mania that the only thing standing in the way of you and $1 million are thousands of conversations with home sellers.
There you go.
And so it's very true.
He's proof.
Thousands of no's and you're a millionaire because you're going to get a ton of yeses along the way. What do you got, Elliot?
Well, I mean, a couple of things, right? Like incremental moves make monumental results. I think is that's another Darren Hardyism where I think it's just so powerful is the day in and day out, right? The GOAT, Tom Brady, I think lived it for such a long period of time. But I think reeling it back, like looking at like my course of entrepreneurship, it's actually a collection. Yes, you have to have work ethic. Yes, I do think that you actually have to pay attention to what's going on too. Because how are you going to communicate? What are you doing that's working? What are you doing that's not working? And finding a balance of working on your business versus in your business when it's just you, that's everything from the janitor to the president, you have to find ways to do those things. And so I think that getting beat up is part of it. And yes, it's absolutely that grind, but I think this is where people have fallen off of getting really clear on the goal. Having what's that one North Star goal that if you reach that one thing, it's going to trickle down to everything else. And sometimes that's got to be an action that you can control. If you say, I'm going to close 50 deals this year, you can't always control that you're going to close 50 deals this year. But what's the number one action that you're going to do that's going to line up with that goal? Is it working social? Is it making phone calls? Is it sending out more mailer, right? Whatever that is to you, and just surrendering to whatever that looks like to that action, regardless of the amount of times that you're going to get punched in the face around that action.
Cool. Like it.
I think the only thing I'll add is you've got to silence the mental monkeys, because we typically know what we need to do in order to have success. And there's usually something that's getting in the way of us doing the thing that we know we need to do, like the social game, like making your phone calls, like doing your mailers. Most of us, especially in real estate, know that if we did those things, we would have results. And so what is it that's getting in the way? And the one thing that I really resonated with me is we were in a room of top producing realtors from across the country, and it was a round table, and everyone was sharing the thing that was the struggle for them. There was an agent that spoke up, and she'd been in the business for over 20 years, and she had a very successful business, but about 80% of her business is buyer focused. And she said in the whole room, this required so much vulnerability, I can't even imagine, that she doesn't think that she's capable of taking listings. So she has this
20 years in
mental
the game.
monkey that is doubt that shows up as I can't take a listing. And I'm like, girl, you are like top in your market and you're working 80% buyers. You're a rock star. You can go get listings. Like, let us show you, because we're really good at that. So
Yeah, we'll give you the shortcut.
Silence the mental monkeys. Stay the course. Great advice, everyone. Hey, thank you so much for tuning in. If you're getting value out of this episode, please give us a like, leave us a comment, and be sure to hit that notification bell so you're notified of our new updates.